I get when I have the Neuralink conversation, the short-term benefits of what he's selling now. You know, it's beautiful to think you can give someone hearing back. You could stop seizures. You can make someone walk again. It's hard to argue against it, you know, but it's the things in the future where that will become a necessary part of life, I think, if you want to partake in whatever modern life looks like in the maybe not so distant future, you might have one. And it's funny to me that a lot of the people who say they might be against transgenderism are now perhaps will embrace transhumanism by wanting the Neuralink and, you know, altering their body to be part of this dystopia.
Yeah, you know, it's there's an obvious connection between transgenderism and transhumanism. I talk about this a lot. People like Martine Rothblatt make it very clear. Books like Virtually Human and From Transgender to Transhuman. But transhumanism is much, much broader than transgenderism. And you have, for instance, the enhanced Olympics that Peter Thiel is boosting. Mm-hmm. And that is basically gender normative kind of version of human enhancement, transhumanism, that doesn't really involve cutting off something and replacing it with a Mr. Potato Head part. It's more, you know, giving Mr. Potato Head bigger and bigger parts,
right?
And Mrs. Potato Head.
Well,
and I think that it's really a good illustration of what you can expect from the future, because you have here Elon Musk talking about these godlike super intelligences that must be combated with more human-centered AIs, and that the way that we're going to combat them is to link our brains to a tertiary AI self that's been trained on our morals and values and ourselves. Yep. And we'll link our brains with freaking trodes in our gray matter, blah, 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 cyborg heroes against the post-human swarm. And yeah, okay, I'm sure something to that extent is on down the road, kind of. But if you look at transgenderism, I mean, this is very old. It's over a century old, right? And whenever people are like, they're 50 years ahead of anything you see today, I'm like, well, okay, let's check in on the transgender movement. You know, they've been talking for a century about turning men into women and women into men. But, you know, last I checked, I mean, on occasion you find one that would pass on film or maybe in a club, but they have not successfully done any of that. Mm-hmm. What they've done is they've created technological illusions by kind of grafting body parts and things like that. But, you know, ultimately, the only thing they've really accomplished is to get people to accept it and to get people to change their language and to call a man a woman and a woman a man.
Yeah.
It'll probably be very similar with these godlike AIs. The AI is good enough that you can have a conversation with it, and maybe it really will be a kind of PhD level polymath, as they're kind of hinting at for 2025, 2026 with GPT-5, maybe Grok 3, who knows? Okay, but the kind of godlike expectation is what's really important. You know, I can have a little totem for you and shake it around with rattles in front of your face and say, this is magic, this is God. And, you know, maybe you believe it, maybe you don't. Throughout human history, people have believed it a lot.
Right.
Now I have a totem that will talk on its own without me having to talk for it. So, yeah, I think it's really important to distinguish that, though. Just because things are going to change doesn't mean it's going to completely align with the vision that it's changing towards. But it doesn't, you know, you can't discount it. But to take it literally, to me, is a fool's errand.
Yeah, so like I was saying before we went live about a lot of friends leaving New York, and a lot of friends left New York because of how it became a really scary, deranged surveillance state during lockdowns. And they were trying to pass, you know, well, I think they were using the codes, right, to get into restaurants for the vaccine passport stuff. And then you brought up Peter Thiel, and that's someone, in my opinion, who's expanding all of that, which could become the social credit system. And then also, speaking of becoming gods, he's known for injecting the blood of younger people into his body with the company Ambrosia. Have you heard of Ambrosia?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
You know,
he showed interest in it. Whether he's actually done it, don't know. But Brian Johnson, you know, Outlook at Johnson, he's
right.
taken his own son's blood, or at least part of the blood, and donated it to his own father. So it's a strange family tradition, and one that, you know, as you see look, I love Tucker, but as you see Tucker Carlson boosting people like Brian Johnson, it's not that he didn't question it, but let's just say that it wasn't the most challenging interview ever. I think that there is every reason to believe that we'll see a kind of Trump era transhuman revolution that far exceeds anything that happened under Biden. So that's just something people are going to have to just prepare for. I don't think the government can do certain things. They can outlaw parabiosis, right? The blood transfusion process, where they could outlaw AI. They could, but they're not going to, most likely. And even if they do, many societies won't. So I just think it's just really important to remember that basically this technological antichrist has been rising for centuries and will continue to rise. And you just have to be able to look that beast in his beady black eye like I'm doing right now, and try to laugh. You
gotta try to laugh.
It's going to be just uglier and uglier.
And then for those wondering, if you don't know, ambrosia is the Greek food of the gods for immortality, I believe. So this is the kind of game they're playing. And they're also, Peter Thiel and Musk, with the defense contracts for spy satellites, are building an omniscient false god in the sky, or with things like their AI, or Clearview AI, which scoured the internet of all of our photos to put into their database for facial recognition, which I'm curious about because it seems so widespread, and they have like billions of photos that they've scraped off the internet. And I'm wondering how, if they are, I'm sure they are, applying that to what's going on with the recent assassination of the United Health CEO, who just seems to have vanished, right? In a surveillance state like New York, where cameras are everywhere. I'm curious, if how much AI is being used to try to track this guy.
I mean, I can't imagine a world in which it's not being used as much as possible, but there's so many weird things about that assassination. The more I've looked at it, especially, over the weekend, people have noted pretty much immediately, right? The online swarms noted that you've got those Crime Stoppers photos that they put out, and one shows the shooter at the scene of the crime, and he's got a kind of dark jacket on with a hood, and the backpack is obviously like a whitish or silverish color. And then you've got the other picture that they put out where he's flirting with the girl and has pulled his mask down, or her mask down. Who knows? But
never be too sure.
One way or the other, the backpack is black, right? So, and the hoodie is very different. And so nobody's really talking about that discrepancy in the media. It's all like this churn online. And the one article that I've read, there's probably others, but the one I read was from Newsweek, and they get this security expert to explain what's going on with these two different backpacks. He's like, oh yeah, well, most likely he had a change of clothes and another backpack in the one backpack, so that when he went into Central Park, he could change and escape. And they're like, well, that doesn't say anything about what we're talking about, which is that the day before, he was in a hostel with a black backpack,
right,
and a lighter jacket. Then later you see him with a silver one and a darker jacket. And it really doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you even say that? Like, the guy's going to have like an almost identical outfit in his backpack and throw that bad boy on? It doesn't make any sense. So what I see is like, it's either, I usually attribute these sorts of things to just stupidity. But this is so in your face, along with all of this kind of swarm activity push, like celebrating the CEO's death, that I for once, well, maybe not for once, but I think it's probably a good time to unleash the paranoid, shadow of the mind and start wondering if we're not just simply being toyed with by either intelligence agencies or someone else in regard to all this.
I agree. I think he's out there smiling on camera, knowing very well what's going to happen afterwards. If he's that calculated, I believe he was that calculated, and knowing in that surveillance state, everything he does will be looked at, and then it's used, as like almost like a red herring. I don't know, because he could just be a guy who's getting away with it for now.